Pull my notes up here. And all right. I think without much further ado, we'll get going here. Hello, Nevada County. This is David Clark Carroll with the Nevada County Tech Connection. We're a project of the Nevada County Economic Resource Council. We like to look at how technology is being used by the community, by manufacturers, by small businesses, by educational facilities. In the past, we've talked to folks from the hospital about their imaging equipment. We've talked to Nevada County Office of Emergency Services about the type of tech they use to communicate in the field during a wildfire. And given the spate of ransomware attacks that have hit Nevada County entities all in the last year, I thought it'd be great to get someone on to illuminate what is ransomware, how it affects us, and what can be done about it. So we're joined tonight by Professor Alex Torres from Sierra College. And there's been multiple attacks. Both the Nevada Irrigation District, the city of Grass Valley had information that there was sensitive info about victims of violent crime that was compromised. Truckee's planning department set their permitting process back by 6 weeks. So this isn't just your usual, oh, I clicked the wrong thing, our computer in our office is down, let's get tech support in to fix it. This is malicious hacking that directly affects a business and seeks to extract, in many cases, a significant financial penalty. So before we get too much into the weeds here, I'd love to hear just kind of how you got to where you are today, because it's rare for someone with a background in cybersecurity to wind up at our local community college. And I'd love to hear what brought you there, and just a little bit about your background before we launch into it.
Good question. So again, my name is Alex Torres, and I am excited to be here. Looking forward to this. And my background, besides teaching at Sierra College, and I've been doing that for about 4 years, and I just started full-time with them. But besides that, I also work for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise within their cybersecurity division. And I've been doing that for so many years. I think I had a full head of hair when I first started there. And in there, my job is the lead threat and vulnerability management engineer. I pretty much attack the company from the internal or the external and send out reports to different divisions and have them remediate their environments. Besides that, I also do consulting work in even in Reno, in Sacramento, in San Francisco, or even as far down as LA. I even did some consulting work when I went on vacation in Puerto Rico with a hospital over there to try to help them be compliant with HIPAA and all that fun stuff. So it's been an exciting career. It's definitely has progressed over the years. But I did start in the private sector, then I went into consulting. Within the private sector, I got into training within HPE, and that led me to Sierra College. I actually happened to train one of the instructors that was teaching at Sierra College at the time, and he managed to pull me in. But it's been great. It's been an awesome journey.
You're not the first person I've interviewed from Sierra who said something along the lines of, well, they just they wouldn't take no for an answer. They brought me in and it seemed like a great fit. So that's a pretty cool path. Again, you're not just a guy teaching at the school. You've really been in this industry for a while. I love the whole idea of your job is to attack your company too. Just like the basic premise of it, I love that. But it's also real if you don't have someone doing that for you, you don't know what someone who's not working for you could do. So
exactly. And I mean, unfortunately, as I attack the company, I have specific rules I have to go by, but the bad guys have no rules. That's what makes it a little bit harder to defend against some of the bad guys out there.
That's an interesting angle on it too. So is the idea, you're kind of doing stress tests on specific identified things, whereas an external hacker could just be broader and like looking for any weaknesses, or?
Well, take for example something as simple as brute forcing. We're trying to try as many username and passwords on the system as possible to try to get in. If I was going to do it for our company, I wouldn't do it indefinitely. There'd be a time frame. There'd be a limit.
Okay.
There might be a limit on the environment that I do it against. Whereas bad guys, they can take and set it up, do it brute force, use Tor against it, so it looks like the brute force is bouncing all over the planet, and attack our systems indefinitely. So there's a big difference between the way I do it as compared to the way the bad guys do it.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought, they can literally just have a dedicated server aimed at the system, whereas you're clocking in and out. You're working. So, well, I don't want to get too far off into the weeds before we get going here. So I'd love to get started. I believe you have a PowerPoint with some more details you'd like to share.
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and share my screen. And just so that I don't see my face the entire time in Zoom, I'm going to stop my video and you can see my presentation. Okay, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So again, our presentation is on ransomware. And I have here objective. I should have used a different word besides objective on here. Maybe agenda would have been a little bit better. So first, I'm going to start off with discussing who I am. And I talked about that a little bit, as well as a little bit about my school. Then I'm going to go ahead and jump right into ransomware. What is it? Talk about a couple different attacks. And then from here, I'm going to focus on 3 big areas, meaning preparing for attack or before an attack happens, what to do during an attack while you're undergoing that ransomware attack, and then what to do after you've been a victim of attack. In other words, how do you bring everything back up? Then from here, we can end it with some questions. So as I mentioned, I do work for Hewlett Packard Enterprise also, besides teaching over at Sierra College. I've been in information security for well over 20 years. I'm also a member of the Mayor's Task Force on Cybersecurity, as well as the K-12 initiative here in California, in other words, to bring education and awareness at the K-12 level. As for Sierra College itself, and I got to do my commercial with the website. So this is Sierra College's website in case you haven't been on here, and it has all the academics and all the information for Sierra College. Sierra College is a community college in Rockland, California, and Rockland is, you can look at it as a suburb of Sacramento. Even though it's its own city, I look at it as a suburb. Sierra College is a national school of excellence in cyber defense. And that's recognized by the Department of Defense and the National Security Administration. And that was obtained based on the curriculum that we've developed inside the school. So this was a nice long process. We are just one of, the last time I checked, one of 2 community colleges in the entire state of California that has that designation. Last spring, our school was the first time that we did this, where we actually decided to engage in some type of cyber challenge activity. And we joined California's Mayor's Cup. And when we did that, we actually took first place in Northern California. The school also offers degrees in IT technician, cybersecurity, data analytics, network technicians, and a couple other areas. But these are the ones that have to do with what we're talking about today. So from here, jumping into ransomware. And I actually got this definition from the FBI's website. So ransomware is a type of malicious software or malware that prevents you from accessing your computer files, systems, or network and demands you pay a ransom for their return. Okay. Very good definition from the FBI, nice and clear. The key word, it prevents you from accessing your stuff. If you're a business and you go to your office and you cannot access your files, your computers, or anything, your business cannot function. So that prevention is the key word, where ransomware prevents you from accessing everything. There are different types of ransomware out there, from crypto to lockers. It makes no sense to dive into the details of these. Most of them, the word defines in a sense what they do. But one of the more interesting ones is this last one here, that's ransomware as a service. So imagine that. I mean, some of you may have something like Office 365, where you're using email as a service. This is ransomware as a service. So you can pay and get the tools for ransomware as a service, where someone manages the infrastructure and you just pay for the additional service to attack company X. So this is an interesting one. From here, there are derivatives of ransomware that, again, the name defines in the sense what they do. Ransomware has been around for years, since the 2000s, so it's been around for a while, but it's still here, and it seems like it's getting stronger. And the reason it seems to be getting stronger is because there's a big financial incentive here. And it's, in a sense, I mean, it's sad to say, but it is easy money. Okay? And I do have a couple statistics on the ransomware. There's the largest ransomware to date was priced at 70 million. 70% of ransomware attacks target small and medium-sized businesses. Okay? If I go down over here, 20 billion is the predicted ransomware damage for this year, for 2021. Think of the pipeline that happened, the attack on the pipeline back in the East Coast. That was a ransomware attack. 20-day average downtime. So imagine if your company is a victim of a ransomware attack and you cannot access any computer or network inside your environment for 23 days. Can your business still function? Okay? Many businesses cannot. Many businesses cannot weather this storm. Average ransomware payment, $170,000. And the big one is, and I look at this as the big one, is the bill for recovering from a ransomware attack. So it doesn't finish when you make that payment. It continues on, because now you have to take and bring your system back up. And that doesn't even go into what's going to happen to your business, to the reputation of your business. So how does ransomware occur? How does it happen into your system, into your network? On here on the screen, I have a whole bunch of technical terms that go into different techniques that are used to get ransomware in your environment. But the easiest way to define this is, imagine if I send you an email with a link. You click that link, you can have ransomware. Let's say I send you a phone message with a link and you click on it, you can get ransomware. You take a USB and you install it in your computer, you can get ransomware. You go to www.crazysite.com, whatever it may be, you can get ransomware that easy. That last example is an example of Driveby, meaning you just go to a site and literally by going to that site, it can infect your computer with ransomware. And if you're infected, chances are you'll see something like this, and you know that your system has been infected. Along with that, notice on this one right here, it says to pay in some form of Bitcoin. Right? And that's what you hear. That's what happened to the pipeline attack that happened this past year, where Bitcoin, I think it was like 3 million or 7 million had to be paid in Bitcoin. I forgot what the number it was, but that's how they did it with Bitcoin. And the reason that they used Bitcoin is, the key thing to understand in Bitcoin is it's anonymous. Okay, the lure of people transacting in Bitcoin is the anonymity. Right? And the people who have these ransomware take advantage of that anonymity. If you were to put your bank account, it's going to track to you, or your credit card or something like that. It's going to be tracked to whoever did that. But throwing a Bitcoin on there, that's what makes it more lucrative for the people who actually develop this. But this isn't the only screen you get. There are other screens that you might get that tells you that your files are encrypted. Some of them might have a clock and say, if you don't pay by this date, we're going to delete all your data. Okay? Imagine if you are a hospital or police department or school, and they tell you they're going to delete every single file on your campus, okay, unless you pay by a certain deadline. Okay. Now, what is the timeline? Let's say, for example, you take and you were to click on that email or insert that USB. How long does it take for the ransomware to hit your system? Well, this was something that was posted out in Dark Reading, where they did an analysis on how long it takes for the ransomware to affect your systems or your network. 3 seconds is how long it took. So for example, you click on that email. From there, the email automatically downloads the ransomware in the background. You don't even see it, don't even know it's happening. It unpacks and executes. It takes and downloads the encryption key, and it needs 2 keys. One key to encrypt it, the other key to unlock it. And when you pay your Bitcoin, that's what you get, is the key to unlock it. So it downloads the keys, and it scans your computers for attached drives. So if I pull up my computer here, inside my computer, I have these additional hard drives on here. And on here, I actually have a USB attached onto my computer. So that ransomware is going to scan for these drives, and it's going to encrypt those drives. And notice up on here, it says I can map a network drive. So I can connect this to a network drive, and that ransomware could affect that ransomware drive. Imagine if inside this system, notice right here, I have Sierra College, or I have my OneDrive here for Sierra College that attaches to OneDrive, where I have files in OneDrive. That ransomware could attack the OneDrive files and encrypt those files. Okay, and then from there, the file encryption begins. Again, it takes roughly 3 seconds for it to happen. But imagine if this just happens in the background and nothing is popped up for you, let's say for a week, while this virus or this ransomware propagates your entire network, attaching to every file, every system. And then at a certain time, everything is encrypted and everything is locked. Right? That's the dangers of ransomware. It's so fast. It does it behind the scenes. Chances are you don't even know what's happening. Right?
That is terrifying.
Yeah, 3 seconds. When I saw that, I'm like, okay. And I've seen it in action, and I've used and tested ransomware in action, and they are pretty quick. So ransomware security strategies. What can we do? And I have it in bolded or highlighted: before, during, or after. So I have before, meaning before you are a victim of a ransomware attack. What should you be doing to prep yourself? And let's say you are currently under attack. What should you do? And then what do you do after the attack to bring your systems back up? These are the 3 main areas. Regardless of how you look at it, you want to know what you can do to protect yourself. If you're currently being attacked, what do you do? And then what do you do afterward to recuperate? So for the before, 2 things that probably should stand out that everyone should do is keep their operating system, software, and applications, keep everything up to date. Make sure you have antivirus or anti-malware solutions, and make sure it's up to date and you do regular scans. This is a generic thing that pretty much everyone knows. Keep your system up to date, keep it patched, keep it nice and secure. This area right here is having a backup strategy. Okay. So before you're a victim of attack, businesses should have some type of backup strategy in place. They should have it, and it should be tested regularly. I've came across companies that when I walked in to audit the company, they said that they had a backup strategy in place. So I said, okay, let's test it. And when they went to test it, they realized that their entire backup had been corrupted for the past 8 months. Had that system been a victim of a ransomware attack, all of their files would have had to revert back to 8 months ago. So chances are that company would have gone out of business. Okay? So the important thing is you have to test that backup. You just can't just turn it on and leave it alone. You have to go back and test it. You have to do secure backups, meaning that when you back up your environment, that backup should not be connected to your environment. Okay? Remember the scenario that I gave you with these drives. So imagine if I was backing up to a remote server, the ransomware could affect my backup server. So you want to make sure that you do a backup. Let's say, for example, if your backup strategy is to back up once a week, back up, and it should be disconnected. From there, the next month or next week, you should have another backup and then disconnect it. You could do incremental backups, meaning what's changed since the last backup. So that way you have all of your data, but you should keep good, thorough records of your backup and know that it actually works, okay? Unfortunately, many companies fall short in this area and in having their backup strategy, because there's something else that a lot of companies don't realize until it happens to them. I had a company, and this company did not have that many servers. I think they had like 10 servers. So it wasn't that big. It was a nice medium-sized company, but they had a lot of virtual systems inside that environment. Each server that they had like 30 to 40 virtual systems. Multiply that by the amount of servers they had, that was a lot. That is a big environment. How do you back up that environment? How do you back up the operating system? How do you back up your domain controller, your Active Directory, all your files and everything else, and then bring it back up again when you're able to? It is a process. So when I looked at this company and their backup strategy, I asked them, when was the last time they tested? And this was another company compared to the last one I talked about. When this company tested their backup strategy, it took them 2 weeks to come back from the backup. Meaning they had the live systems, but they had other systems where they were able to test their backup. And it took 2 weeks just to bring the files back. That's not going in and checking everything and everything else that goes with it. That was just bringing the files back. What they failed to realize was the bandwidth that was needed to back everything up and to bring everything back. Is they needed much more bandwidth than what they had. The company ended up getting a secondary internet inside their environment, and at the end had a much, much better backup strategy, and they were able to back up within days after that. Companies should have some type of business continuity plan or something in place, so that way they have everything documented. But these right here, I'm going to bold these. These are the big ones. These are the ones that also what I see is many companies don't do these. Many companies do not use multi-factor authentication. You go to the company, you sit in front of the computer, you log in and you're in. There is no additional authentication inside that environment. Many companies do not segment their network. And what I mean by that is they have the HR, the payroll, and some other division all on the same subnet, all reachable by each other. So everything's not separated. So if one system gets infected, they all get infected. Okay? And this is a big one because companies pay a lot of money for these switches inside their environment, especially larger enterprise companies paying thousands of dollars for equipment, and they have the default settings on there. Utilizing defense in depth or zero trust is a big one, especially the defense in depth, meaning having multiple security tools in place and not just reliant on one. So up here, I think I previously talked about having antivirus software, malware. You should have your firewall all up at the desktop level. From there, you should have your perimeter firewall and all your other tools that you use to help protect your environment. So that way you have multiple layers. So if someone were to get into one layer, they still have to get through the other layers of your environment. And zero trust is an awesome, and some people call it a buzzword on zero trust, but properly implemented, it carries the philosophy that you don't trust anything. No one is trusted on a network. No computer is trusted on a network. When you have that mindset, this becomes major. Segmenting your network, isolating environments becomes paramount as you're implementing this philosophy of not trusting any systems. From here, this one right here, out of everything that I have in here, out of all the documents that I have seen over the years on ransomware, this by far is probably the biggest that I've seen. Many companies out there have allow users to pretty much install whatever they want on their systems. Okay, in other words, they give them those rights to be able to install anything. Well, what ends up happening is user goes to site X, whatever site that is, they download the ransomware and it executes with their permission. And if they're admin on that box, then it's going to allow that ransomware to take effect on that box. And it's going to continue to populate inside the entire environment. So removing that admin rights from the systems. So, and unfortunately, that admin right is a default. So for example, let's say you were to go to the store right now and go buy a brand new computer, a brand new, let's say Windows 10 or even Windows 11 computer. When you turn it on, it's going to say welcome. It's going to say create a username, create a password. It's going to do it behind the scenes checks, and then you're in. The problem is that account that was just created is the admin account on the system. You have full rights to do everything on that system. What you should do is log in and create another account, give it just bare minimum rights, and just use that other account. And when you need to do something that requires permission, the system will prompt you for those credentials. If you had this in place, this right here would thwart off many of the ransomware attacks that are out there. In conjunction with segmenting your network, it'll help you in isolating your environment. Now, let's say you've been attacked. Somebody in your office clicked on that link. 3 seconds later, you're starting to see the attacks taking place. You want to isolate and identify as quick as possible what systems or systems and rip them out of the network if you have to. Disconnect them, unplug them, totally disconnect them and stop it in their tracks. If I was to click on ransomware in my system and it started to encrypt the C drive, and then it read these other ones and started to encrypt it, and I unplug it, these other ones will not be encrypted. Okay? It only encrypts as it's running and as it reads them on there. So disconnecting the systems from the network and isolating the attack, which goes in conjunction, if you properly segmented your network is going to be isolated anyway. And this actually helps with that isolation where you can completely take down that portion of the network. Attempt to investigate the source of the attack. Try to narrow it down to the system that actually was the main system that was the victim of the attack. That allows you to jump into that system and do some deeper forensic analysis to see exactly what was done, so you can use that to help secure your environment. And you might also need that information if you have to report to authorities. From there, prepare to restore your environment from backup. During the attack, your light bulb should be going on and saying, okay, we're a victim of attack. We've isolated, our network is segmented, we've disconnected everything, let's bring it back up. Now you got to be in restore and backup mode in conjunction with this investigation. So you have to make sure that all your backups are in order to start to restore everything. Determine your options. So let's say you've been, again, a victim of a ransomware attack. It has encrypted a couple of your systems. Then you have to decide, do you pay or not pay? In the past, the FBI actually suggested that you don't pay. They have since changed their tune and said you should pay depending on if you have a backup strategy in place. Because police departments have been victims of ransomware attacks. Hospitals have been victims of ransomware attacks. And unfortunately, the only way to retrieve your data is to actually pay that ransom. So you would pay it, and then you have to go through the entire process of rebuilding your entire system. So this is going to get costly in several ways. It's not that you just pay right now and that's it. You have to go through an entire process of bringing your environment back up to compliance by, in a sense, rebuilding your environment again. Educate your employees. That is done before, during, after, and every chance you get. I recall one company offering or sending employees email that if an employee went out there and they clicked the email, it automatically forwarded them to the training department, and they were required to do training because they clicked on something that they shouldn't have clicked. That is an awesome strategy to get people on board with this ransomware and to help protect your environment against ransomware. So from there, after the attack, I don't have much here, but behind the scenes, there's quite a bit here. You should continue to further investigate on how the attack occurred if you didn't determine it. Okay, you want to find out exactly in the technical side what actually happened, what broke, What did not work inside your environment? Because if you do not figure that out and you bring your environment back again, you're just going to end up running circles because it's going to happen again. So you need to take and investigate it as much as possible so that way you can rectify that, bring your environment back up and not worry about that one particular type of attack. You should restore from a clean backup. In other words, not only should you have one backup, you should have several backups. So for example, right now we're in November. Let's say you back up every week, you should have 40 some backups that you can choose from. Which one is a clean one? Well, that's where your investigation is going to find out. When did the attack occur? What system did that allow that to propagate in the network? That'll determine what your clean backup is. What happens if you investigate it, but you don't find out exactly how it was done, and you restore from what you thought was a clean backup, and it was just the ransomware hiding behind the scenes, waiting to trigger again?
Oh.
Then you're just going to be stuck again. You're going to be stuck doing the same thing again. Bring up your mission critical systems first. There's always some contention on here on what to bring up first, but think about it this way. Imagine if you were Amazon.com and Amazon became a victim of a ransomware attack. What is their bread and butter? What do they want to bring up more than anything else? Amazon.com, their website. That is their mission critical. That is their bread and butter. So that's what the big focus should be on, is to bring that system up from a nice, clean environment. From there, you want to continue securing your environment based on what you found here. And again, this is probably a good time to do a complete audit of your environment to see if you find anything else. Because once the bad guys got wind of your environment and they were able to encrypt your environment, in their minds, you were an easy target and they made some Bitcoin off of you, chances are they might try to come back. So you want to make sure that you secure your environment, you do some investigations, you see what else you can do, what's missing in your security to help lock down your environment. One thing that I recommend that companies do, if they're completely lost on what to do to secure the environment, I really like the CIS, the Center for Internet Security, Critical Controls for Cyber Defense. Right here, it shows that it's roughly 18 things that you can do to secure your environment against cyber attacks. And they are from having an inventory of your environment, inventorying your software, protect your data, secure configuration, account management. And inside each one, they provide actionable step-by-steps that you can do to help lock down your environment. And somewhere in here, you're going to have things like making sure your environment is segmented, making sure you have all your authentications, make sure you're not using admin credentials on your system. All of that is inside here in a systematic way for you to lock down your environment. From here, once you do the controls, then you can jump into a full-blown framework like the cybersecurity framework. And if you notice the cybersecurity framework, the framework is built on identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. If you notice what I did with the ransomware, I followed that exact same formula. Identify my ransomware, I protected my environment, I continued to detect and investigate, I responded to that with my backup, and I fully recovered. So it's the same exact process, but on here, the difference between this framework and the CIS controls, the CIS is targeted at cyber attacks. Whatever that cyber attack may be, that is their main focus. Whereas the cybersecurity framework is an all-encompassing security framework. It includes things like HR and everything else inside here. And cost to recovery. I threw this in here last minute. After I went through I had to throw in the cost that it's going to take for you to recover from a cyber or from a ransomware attack. On a ransomware attack, you're going to have downtime. And if you notice from the stats, the average time is 23 days. Can your company survive 23 days? People hours. How many man hours or people hours is it going to take to bring your environment back up? Okay. Repeat attacks is a big one. Legal defenses, but this right here by far is the big one. Okay, when people know that your company was a victim of a cyber attack, chances are they're not going to want to do business. or they might take their business elsewhere. So this cost of recovery, it's hard to determine, but at the end, it could be your business, okay, where it could, in a sense, take down your business. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding of ransomware attacks, and things that you can do to help maintain a nice, secure environment.
Wow, that
A lot of information, huh?
a lot of rather unsettling information. I mean, I knew when we were going into this that it wasn't just the large corporations that got hit, but the chart saying that small businesses are about 75% of the victims. That's kind of mind blowing to me.
It's a big one.
It's not just a problem facing the Amazons of the world. It's if you've got a website and you've got payroll, you could be a target. Now, one of the other things that really struck me, the use of Bitcoin. Is this partly because there's been malware, there's been hacking for as long as there've been the internet, but we've really seen it feels like an acceleration of these visible ransomware attacks, and hadn't really put together the rise of cryptocurrency as being partly a way that people are getting paid for that.
It's the anonymity of it all, because it's so anonymous. It's just a set of numbers on there. And the government is starting to take steps. They're starting to notice all the crypto that's going around, all the transactions that are happening with crypto. And they're starting to slowly but surely set policies with Bitcoin. They set a policy recently that when you sell transactions, you got to start reporting, which is common in stocks. You would think it would have been common in crypto, but the problem is with Bitcoin, everything is anonymous. So right now, how do they enforce that if it's anonymous? Well, they enforce that when they start seeing the money coming into your account. That was a recent bill that's trying to be introduced, where the IRS can start to audit transactions taking place in your account. That's what they're looking for, is that Bitcoin coming in, the proceeds from the Bitcoin coming into your accounts.
It feels a little bit like we're still in the Wild West phase, like, the early days of file sharing when Napster and Kazaa were going hot, and there was all this information going out there, all this money being lost by record labels, by movie studios, and no one had figured out how to do it in a way that people can pay for that. And given 20 years later, we've all got Hulu. So hopefully some of these things will get sorted out as time goes by. I wanted to drill back down into the admin rights thing, because you're right. That's one of those things no one thinks twice about. You give your employee a new computer, they set it up, you're done. So just make sure that your average desk jockey rolling in doesn't have admin rights.
And there's things that you can do. For example, if you're in a domain environment, where you're in a Windows domain environment, you can set up restrictions on someone's computer. You can let them know what applications they can install, and that's it. As a matter of fact, you can even push out those applications to them, so that way they can't install anything else except what you automatically push to them. That would block so many ransomware and other attacks from happening inside your environment, because you can't install anything. You have no rights on that system. But a lot of companies take the easy route. Let the employee, they work from home, they want to take and watch videos, they want to watch whatever it is they want to watch or do, or surf on their computer. Let them take and install and do whatever. And unfortunately, that's not the road that they should be taking.
So that's a good segue, because the next question I had was kind of concerning what so many of us are now, which is remote workers, and how to ensure that safety-minded mentality goes home with people and stays home.
And that's a big one, because imagine if you are remote and you VPN into your company.
Yeah.
You take in on another window, you're surfing the internet, you get a ransomware. 3 seconds later, it's inside your system. It's going to find that VPN connection and work its way or worm its way through your company. And the investigation, probably it's going to get back to your system as the way that it actually got inside your environment. I highly encourage people, you should have your business computer and your personal computer, keep them separate unless you want something like that to get back to you, because it will get back.
No, we had a panel on remote workers, I guess last fall, feels like longer ago. And that was one of the things that one of the people was mentioning, that they make sure all of their remote workers get an office computer. And I can't help but wonder if they had someone like you on staff telling them to do it.
I'm going to add it to that and say, okay, I'll give you a computer and we'll give you a Raspberry Pi. And you can connect the Raspberry Pi to the internet and surf to your heart's content on that Pi. And that keeps everything separate.
Awesome. I wanted to drill down to the investigation aspect of this a bit. Now, it obviously is key to figure out how you get compromised.
Yeah.
If a company pays the ransom and gets the encryption key, does that help narrow down how the system is compromised, or is it frequently not necessarily?
Doesn't really help, because imagine if you're in an office and let's say you have 50 computers in one area. One of them gets infected, it propagates to all the systems are going to have that same thing on the window saying pay in Bitcoin. You pay it, it doesn't tell you what system it was.
Okay, so that's if you're thinking about ways to try and figure out, that's not a way.
That's not a way. If you're in a segmented environment and isolated, then you narrowed it down to 50 computers. It has to be one of those computers that infected, especially if you're properly segmented. And that's what helps. That's what helps when you segment an environment like that.
Now, you talked about how, once you've paid, does that seem like that increases the chances of a repeat attack, or is it a little hard to say?
I like putting on my bad guy hat. If I just made $50,000 from you, let's say, and I just throw that number out there, $50,000 from you, and imagine, let's say I was the bad guy. I would set up the malware, let's say on a site. One of your employees drove by that or went to that site, downloaded it. I don't know what company is being attacked, okay? Because thousands of people all over the world might have clicked on that link and downloaded, and it's infecting all of these areas. I could get a pop-up and say, hey, you got someone grabbed over here, and here goes the key for it. And then from there, I just sit there and wait. Once I see the money, you get the key. I might keep my eye on that company and say, I'm going to try you again later. I might take and see what you do and see if I can worm my way back inside there, especially if it was a quick buck. I made a quick dollar doing it that way.
That's a really important thing for a company to keep in mind then. Yeah. And now, we didn't talk too much. We talked about segmenting, but is there much value spent in, let's say, encrypting your systems from the get-go? So if someone does come in and lock you down, they can't necessarily read what they've locked down. Because that seems to be the primary reason to pay, right? Is to sensitive information you don't want getting out, in addition to not having access.
Within the CIS controls that I mentioned there, one of the areas goes into encrypting your system. The catch with encrypting your system is you have to know what you're doing. That's the big catch. I have gone into businesses where they've encrypted their computers and I was still able to get in because they encrypted it the wrong way. Because when you go, for example, let's say you're using a Microsoft environment, it's not just click one button and that's it. It's encrypted, especially in the domain environment. It's not that easy. It's a process. There's multiple steps that you have to take. And if you don't follow it in order, then you're going to have that false sense of security, a false sense that I properly encrypted when it actually is not encrypted. So you have to take and go through the process, go through the proper step-by-steps, encrypt your computer. That is a good way to do it, a good way to protect your environment, as long as you do it the right way.
So it's like the backups, make sure you're doing it right.
Make sure you do it right. Make sure you test and test often.
Very cool. I just want to circle back yet again to 23 days average downtime. That's average.
That's
So that
average.
could be, you could be a lot longer than that if the
Oh, yeah.
worst happens.
Yeah.
And particularly in Nevada County, we had significant issues with the PG&E public safety power outages,
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
couple falls ago, and a lot of businesses saw firsthand what 23 days down looks like.
It's like, yeah, it can
And
shut businesses, it can definitely shut businesses down. If you look back in time on when the backup process completely changed for businesses, you have to take it back to the World Trade Center bombings. When that happened, it opened the country, and you can even go by and say the world up, to backup, to having proper backup and all the moving parts that go along with it. How long I mean, you had a people backup, something that was never talked about before. After or pre-World Trade Center, the concept of having a people backup wasn't even there. Virtualization was just in the beginning getting started. All these other technologies that we take for granted now were catapulted after 9/11, especially virtualized environments, having proper backups, not having backups in the same city or in the same area. In New York, they back up to New Jersey, they back up to other areas. All of that just pushed out to the world and gave us a bunch of policies or different strategies that we can use to back up our environment. And it showed us all of the moving parts that are involved to have that proper backup.
man, it's just
It's a
you've
lot.
been blowing my mind tonight because I had this loose idea of, oh, we should talk about ransomware, and I'm like, we needed to talk about ransomware. I'm so glad we did. Uh, another thing that we mentioned earlier, the multi-factor authentication, which is one of those things that people are seeing more and more. And like I'm a user of Mailchimp for work, and they have this little button that says skip multi-factor authentication for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I should not be clicking that button, is what you're
should
saying.
not be clicking with the multi-factor authentication. It's a trip because I recently updated my phone, so I got a new phone. All my multi-factor authentication, all the different security tools that were on my last one, even though Apple takes and transfers everything, because I got an iPhone, everything transfers over, it doesn't transfer over all the encryption keys and everything else. So I had to go inside and re-register all of my systems, all my multi-factor and everything. I had to go through the entire re-registering of that. So it is a process. It is something that it's going to take a while to work out all of those issues. How are you going to take and respond to an employee that has an iPhone or an Apple or an iPad or a laptop, or that's out of the country and they can't get in and their multi-factor isn't working? So all of that needs to be taken care of, hopefully before you're a victim of attack. So that way you can take
Well,
advantage of what comes with multi-factor authentication.
having a couple employees locked out for a couple of days is definitely better than everyone for a month.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. I think about the only other idea I wanted to get a little more illumination on is the idea of drive-by, where it's no longer, you don't have to click on, because I think everyone's been trained, don't click on attachments from emails that you're not expecting. You
Right.
know, don't install programs from unknown sources. But this is beyond that. This is, you clicked, you're just on a website. You didn't download anything.
If you
Um,
take it back in time, go back about 10, 15 years ago, where when you went to certain websites, you got 10,000 websites show up automatically. Okay,
yeah.
because of whatever security wasn't in place on your system caused that to happen. There are websites that you go to that you get that security warning saying, hey, your browser's out of date, your disk, click here to update it. All of those things are potential ways for ransomware to get inside your system. When I did my multi-factor, one of the process is the QR code where I had to scan it and accept the QR code. That's another way people get ransomware. They scan a QR code and now it's in their system. They've automatically authorized that to happen in their device. And your phone can be a victim of ransomware. You can get and have your phone blocked.
Now, you just dropped a bombshell right there. So QR codes are another. We've gotten so used to, you see one, you just scan it.
Yeah.
So this is maybe think twice about just casually
About the
scanning every
skin.
QR code you see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Imagine how easy it would be for me to go to, let's say, a college campus and say, let me put a whole bunch of QR codes and put something enticing on that flyer and just post it
Yeah.
all over campus. How many students do you think I'm going to get to click on that or to take a picture of it and to access that site?
Well, and with COVID, one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of coffee shops and cafes, you can sit at an outside table and scan the QR code there.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that's a completely unattended code saying there. Someone could go
Oh, yeah.
around with stickers and put their own one in place. So uh,
Yeah.
not trying to ruin anyone's day, but I guess the message is be real mindful of those.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely have to be vigilant. Got to stay on our toes.
well, on that cheery note, I think we got to most of the questions I had notes for here. Now, we're going to have you back on in January to talk more broadly about what Sierra College has as far as a cybersecurity career pathway. Because I think, as we talk tonight, there's clearly a need for more people to be on this.
Oh, yes.
or things like a pipeline run on the East Coast wouldn't be going down. So I hope anyone watching tonight curious will tune in and maybe think about that as a career path. Do you have any closing thoughts for us, Alex?
Be vigilant. Okay. It's that zero trust that I mentioned before, where you just don't trust, and it's sad that we have to live in that type of environment. But you're talking about the protection of yourself, of your family, okay, of your businesses, of your home, whatever it may be. Everywhere you go to, the QR codes, everywhere you click, every website that you visit, you have to ensure that you visit those things with that mindset that it could be the bad guy on the other end. Someone sends you an email, that doesn't mean you have to open it, especially if you don't know who it's from. So you have to be vigilant. I have multiple email accounts that I use. I have one email account that I just use for junk. Places that I register, all the junk goes inside there. And I have other email accounts that I use like for banks or for stuff like that. So I know the type of emails that I'm going to get on there. I know not to expect any of that junk inside that email. I automatically unsubscribe and make sure I try to keep that as clean as possible. And it's having that mindset, that security mindset. That's what's going to help you and your business.
Awesome. I really like that idea of multiple email accounts for different purposes. Really makes it so you don't have to think critically every time you're in that inbox.
Oh, yeah.
Although you should be thinking critically. Well, this has been just eye-opening and terrifying, and also you gave a lot of really sound ways to deal with this and not be a casual victim. I'll make sure to stick some of those links to those two sites you mentioned earlier, so folks can check that out. And thanks so much for joining us tonight. I think that's about all we have for you folks tonight. I'm David Clark Carroll from the Nevada County Tech Connection. I've been chatting with Professor Alex Torres from Sierra College, cybersecurity guru, who will be joining us in January. Thanks again, folks.